Dogs have long been our steadfast companions, sources of unwavering loyalty and boundless inspiration. In this heartwarming conversation, authors Cyrus Broacha, Anusha Ramanathan, and Hemali Sodhi join Udayan Mitra, executive publisher at HarperCollins India, to explore this deep bond, celebrating the love and loyalty that dogs bring into our lives.
Hello, everyone. Very special session for World Book Day 2025, where we are talking about our beloved creatures, dogs, with Hemali Sodhi, Cyrus Broacha, Anusha Ramanathan. Uh, Anusha and Cyrus have new books out. Hemali edited the Book of Dog, which is about 3 years old and has got a lot of love since. So lovely to have all of you with us. And this is going to be a freewheeling conversation. We're just going to talk about dogs that we love, dogs that take over our lives. I wanted to start with Himali because the Book of Dog has been around for 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years. And it's got an immense amount of love. It's a collection of 45 pieces by well-known writers, animal activists, all nonfiction pieces. And the theme that holds it together, of course, is love for our fellow furry creatures. What was that experience like, Himali? And just bringing the book together, because one of the things was that everybody agreed to write for free. All royalties from the book go to registered animal charities. And you also did not take royalties, and just everything went to a good cause. What was that project like? Bringing together a project like this, I think it's fairly. I think it's fair to say it's a first of its kind project in India.
Thanks, Udayan. And hi again, Cyrus and Anusha. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So the Book of Dog, it was rewarding in many different ways. I think the idea for the book was something that I was with for a while, but it's only during the pandemic that the opportunity presented itself. Not only because we were just lolling around at home, not doing much, but also because, I mean, on a serious note, when you spend so much time with your dogs without having to, rush to office or rush to wherever, and you have that unfettered kind of time with them, you just sit and think that you are in this situation where the world might come to an end tomorrow, but here are these creatures who are just happy to be here and happy to have your love and happy to be with you. So I think that idea kind of, then I just sat down and said, okay, let's do something about this. Also, the other thing is that most of my sorry.
No, sorry.
So the other thing was that most of the or a lot of the relationships I have with people actually are really about their dogs. I think we spend a lot of time discussing dog anecdotes, and this is what my dog did. And I'm that kind of annoying person that if you give me 2 minutes, will be my phone and I'll be showing different photos of my dogs. So I think the whole idea was that, okay, let's just put something together where we can all exchange stories about our dogs. And yes, it was going to be a project for charity right at the beginning. I think I was very clear on that. And then one of the things I realized was how dogs actually bring people together, in the sense that here I was approaching a lot of people who were, accomplished writers or very busy animal rescuers, or people like Cyrus, who I was like, I mean, it was a dream to be able to, speak to them about their dogs. But I think what was interesting was the fact that everyone was just so forthcoming and so keen to share stories about their dogs. So, and then actually it started out with a list of, I think, about 25. And then the other thing is that the animal welfare community and the dog parent community is a very special one. So they started talking to each other, and then slowly it became 45. The process was, like I said, absolutely marvelous, simply because here I was kind of slightly anxious, thinking, okay, here I am, I don't have a publisher, I'm not offering money. In fact, all royalties are going to go to charity. How are people going to respond? Because these are people with very busy schedules. And everyone was very, very generous. So this book actually it belongs to 45 people plus me. There are 46 authors, as I like to say. And yes, it's been entirely marvelous. In fact, I think one of the things that people keep asking is there going to be a book of dog too? Because I think there are just so many stories that you can share. And I, for one, never get tired of listening to dog stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's also such a, I mean, it's 45 love letters to dogs, and you know, the unifying theme is dogs, obviously, but then the stories are very different from each other, and
Yeah.
they're all real life stories, and you know, it also ranges in format. I mean, there's something by Sarnath, which of course has illustrations as well. There's a photo essay by Suni Tarkurwala, and it's a poem by Gulzar. Then there's straightforward narratives, various things, and you know, all of which talking where people are talking about how either a dog that's been in their family or a dog that they've been known closely, just you know, different kinds of love letters, and yeah, I if we could talk a little bit more about. What the response to the book has been like? I mean, you must be getting a lot of reactions saying what a lovely book and will there be a book of dog too? Uh, but were you surprised by the extent of love that the book got?
I think it would be kind of wrong for me to think that the love was for the humans. I think the love was really for the dogs.
Love
This
really for the dogs, yes, I
and
agree.
so that aspect, no.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think what was rewarding was the letters that came in with people actually sharing more stories about their dogs. And I think
Hmm.
that really, even now, it brightens my day when someone sends an email saying, "Oh, I read the book of dog, and this is what this is Pluto, or this is my dog." And I think that's the delightful bit. I think the other thing that's really rewarding is when some people have said, "You've changed the way we look at dogs."
Ah,
And that actually is the most special thing, where someone says, and my background was that I was actually not a dog person growing up. I was afraid of dogs. I didn't dislike them. I was just afraid of them. And it took one Simba, who was my, and still is my heart dog, to change that. And I think when people read about the different dog stories and the essays and the different genres that you mentioned, the fact that it can actually change even one person's perspective is a special one. That said, again, these are very, very accomplished writers. I think these are very heartfelt stories. So all
hmm.
credit to all the 45 people who've contributed and contributed in such a meaningful way. I think the stories are just so warm that the reaction has been equally warm in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to pick up from something you said there and turn to Anusha, whose book is just out. It's called The Little Book of Indian Dogs. And this is a board book, a picture book. It is for very young kids. And what I wanted to pick up on is, so Anusha, first, if you will tell us very quickly what the book is like, and nothing like hearing about it from the author. And then
Sure.
I'll pick
Yes.
up on what I wanted to say.
Sure. Hi, Udayan. Hi, Cyrus.
Hi.
Again, hi, Hemali. It's nice to be here. I have the book with me. I'll take
Yep.
every opportunity to kind of show it.
Yes.
So it's essentially it's a dive into India's indigenous dog breeds. From, the Rampur Hound to our in-dog, the Streety, very misunderstood, all these breeds, the Rajapalayam, the Kombai, for children. So, so that they know a little bit. Of course, we know our Labradors, we know our German Shepherds, all lovely dogs, but not too many people know about the indigenous breeds. So this is to introduce children to those breeds in a sort of fun way, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, and the extent to which people don't know about the indigenous Indian breeds is sometimes astounding. It's
Yeah.
Really, I mean, these are breeds that have been around for a very long time. In many cases, much longer than the European breeds, who we are much more familiar with. But you say outside of certain quarters of India, if you go in and say Rajapala, most people will say, what? Who?
Yeah.
So, yes.
Probably not even
So,
aware of where that it's
yeah.
a place, forget breed of
Yeah,
dog.
exactly. That is actually named after a place
Yeah, or even
from
that
which the dog comes.
this treaty that is so maligned. I mean, people don't realize, they say stray. No, actually it's an old land race. It's native to, the subcontinent. It's evolved here.
Yeah.
They're so well adapted to our conditions. you'll see them everywhere, from your local sort of chai wala to like every apartment building.
Everywhere.
Everyone has their favorite, your 3, 4 like streeties that you befriend. They're very misunderstood in that sense. So yeah, and of course the other breeds as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually really interesting because sometimes when people talk about Indian breeds, they don't talk about the so-called Indian Pariah dog at all, the Indie breed.
Yeah.
They'll say, okay, these majestic-looking dogs, but they don't talk about the Indian Pariah dog, which is all around us. I mean, in every neighborhood has some, and many of them are now mixed breeds, but the original Indian Pariah dog also exists. I mean, you also see them, and it's a very distinctive breed. I mean, very courageous, very loyal. Proper pack dog, as you say, as the story in the book touches on. Yeah, so I mean, the point that I wanted to touch on was that so we are changing perspectives in a way with a book like this, right? I mean, there is a story there of just for people who haven't seen the book yet. A family that already does have a dog, they're looking for a new dog, and then they consider these various Indian breeds. So there's information on them, including the Indian Pariah dog. Eventually, the family visits a shelter where you, of course, have the message, adopt, don't shop. And in the shelter, I mean, I wish I could show you the camera on this is not going to work well enough, but on the last page, what we see is a picture of the shelter. And in the shelter, of course, those dogs are not Indian dogs. Those are all typically they're abandoned dogs, and they are mostly the European breeds who have been abandoned by families, and they are in the shelter space. And eventually, perhaps the family will bring one of those home. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about the whole adopt, don't shop message that rounds up the book which is where the search eventually ends. What do you think of that? Is that a solution to the situation that we have at hand where so many dogs are homeless?
Sure. I mean, the thinking here was I mean, of course, there's a whole conversation to be had about even breeding for characteristics, right? It's not, I mean, from the get-go, not ideal, not ethical, but people will do it. There are some families that maybe, in a sense, you might say, okay, this dog will have certain characteristics. So maybe I feel like my family can handle, this dog, we're in an apartment, it may not need long walks, so there is that was the thinking that, you can't do away with it entirely. So let's spotlight these breeds also, think of them as an option. They're more suited to our conditions, to our climes, all of that. But at the end, let's say, because at the end of this book, I mean, the child is going to say, Mom, Dad, let's get a dog. That that's what we're hearing from people who've read the book.
Or whatever description, yes.
Yeah, so that's what. So the idea was, let them not say, oh, let's go, call up a breeder, one of these like, terrible, like unethical, I want to book one from your litter, almost like buying something from a store. The idea was let's kind of, push people towards check out your local shelter, see if you might want to bring, and of course, for a family, that's the first that they've never had dogs before. Adopting an older dog is a tricky one, right? Because you need to understand a little bit about dog behavior, dynamics, all of that. So, just something to think about, not just, pick up, go, I want this dog now, let's go buy it. So that was the message behind, the idea behind this, the adopt, don't shop.
Yeah, we'll come back to this in a bit, but I wanted to bring Cyrus in here. Cyrus, firstly, congrats on the book. I've just I read it yesterday, got an advance copy. It's called Doggy Day Out, and will you you'll tell the story much better than I will. Will you tell us the story in brief? What happens?
Yeah, actually, Tina called me up one day and said, "Can you write this book?" And immediately my answer was no, of course, because that's the right thing to say. And after that, she convinced me that it'll be a little book. So because I'm just basically so lazy, and I don't, God, I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to do anything in life except because you have to pay taxes so the government can build better bridges and statues. But be that as it may, since I don't want to go off topic, she said it has to be a caper of sorts. So I said, okay, fine.
Right.
I've grown up with German Shepherds. I know. Let me first just put this out there that I'm not a selective dog lover. There are many people like that, and unfortunately, it's the way people are with humanity as well. So very clearly, you have to be a non-selective dog lover kind of personality to understand the book also, because I try to include all the doggies from my doggy world growing up until today. Because without the Desi doggies, what world would we have? And I have so many memories. I could write a whole diary only of that. Dogs that I've befriended from, Mumbai, to all over the south, to the east, and the north, and the northeast, everywhere. So yeah, so I try to put that all in, but the major part of the whole thing is just a caper, where basically I've got this guy called this. I love the GSD also. There's something about if you ever had GSDs. If you're a lazy human being, that's the dog for you, because the training is like 3 seconds, or the communication is not just a look. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Then you go and get married, and you can't communicate for years. After having a GSD, they spoil you. Relationships are all downhill after that. So I just wanted him to be there because he's always been my hero dog. Like when with my German Shepherd Rufo, who's no longer there anymore, I remember if it's raining, he looks at me, I look at him, we just walk. We don't give a damn. If there are 10 dogs in a pack on the other side of the road, he looks at me, I look at him, and we walk. It's that, that fearlessness, that, bonhomie, like, what are we doing? Are we going to war? Let's go to war. Is it a fire? Let's go to the fire. It's that character that some of these dogs have, which I just resounds with me. I just think we live in emasculated times, and I just like that because I have a partner now who's not, pandemic, screw the pandemic, no mask for us, we're walking, that kind of thing. Okay, before you start shooting me. So then I based it on the fact that, exactly what Anusha's spoken about a little bit also, this fascination for breeds, again, not to be racist and say the breeds are bad and all, but some kid watches something on the internet, or they see a movie or something, whatever, and they want that particular. If you remember what happened to pugs in Gurgaon, Delhi area, one ad film became a hit, and then dogs were bought and they were just abandoned. It was like a tragedy because they realized it's not a toy after one day. So so there's a couple. One clearly likes dogs. The other one, has to withstand the onslaught of being a couple, and so just accepts it. And to cut a long story short, they buy a fancy breed, and the dog gets kidnapped, and then we sort of solve it. Not we, as in Franco and gang, solve it.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's a stupid story by a stupid man, to be honest. But I just love dogs, so I just write about them happily. And that's it. And she said we're aiming for young audiences, so I tried to make it as visually illustrative as well. My wife did the things, the sketches. It kept our marriage going, because back in the day, when my first boy was born, Mikhail, boy, no, I have a boy and a girl, male and female, if you like. She wouldn't let the dog on the bed, and I've always had my dogs on the bed. So our marriage almost crumbled because of that. So this book has brought us together.
Lovely illustrations, but really, I mean, one of the things that the story does, so the central character is this GSD, German Shepherd dog, called Franco, who likes to call himself an Alsatian because, okay, this is typical Cyrus humor, because you understand this, Franco is a bit of a Francophile. So,
yeah. Well, it's disputed territory if you know your wars. It goes up between Germany and France, up and down 200. That was Alsatian with the French way of saying it. So yeah.
So, but he's a central character. But what is really delightful about the book is that, I mean, soon the focus shifts from him to his various friends, who are firstly, I mean, this is in a kind of community. It's the first dogs that we encounter, other than Franco, are actually breed dogs, and then there's this whole gang of streeties who play a very vital role in the story and in the book, because one of the things that they do is they set up a mock fight among themselves, which is the distraction, while the other dogs, which happen to be the breed dogs, they go in and do the real sleuthing. This is a sleuthing story. It's a mystery story. Like Cyrus said,
you're very kind.
There's a dog missing, and Franco and his companions go looking for this dog, and it's quite a caper. So, but yeah, I mean, it involves all of these various characters. But apart from that, there's Cyrus's trademark humor. So it's just about everything, not just about dogs, but generally, mostly about humans and their strange ways. So I mean, I would say everybody should pick up the books, and A Book of Dog. Many people have read. I hope many more people will read it. But please pick up Doggy Day Out, pick up Little Book of Indian Dogs. They're for different age groups. Little Book of Indian Dogs is for really young kids. Doggy Day Out is for slightly older kids. But hope you enjoy the books. To come to a couple of issues that I think come up every time that we write about dogs who we all love. One of the things that both Anusha's book and Cyrus's book touch on, and many of the pieces in the Book of Dog also touch on this, is the whole thing of how unkind humans are sometimes to dogs. And we have a lot of love for dogs, but we also, I mean, in out there we see a lot of hate, I would say, lack of understanding for starters, but also hate. Sometimes, people throwing stones at dogs, generally trying to get dogs out of the way. In gated communities is the whole thing of, dogs don't belong here. Can I quickly get your views, all three of you, on this, and how one addresses this?
See, for me, I'm a complete coward, frankly speaking. Udayan, if I'm honest, I'm like the kind of guy, there's any conflict, I'm always the first guy to run and hide and pretend I'm not there. But something switches on when anybody attacks animals or says anything about animals, or even Hindi cinema with the Kutta Kamina and Kutta Ki Maut and all these things just tried my blood. I mean, even now I'm getting angry 13,000 years later. So for me, I mean, I don't want to tell you what I've done. I've done violent things, and so let's just say that shouldn't be advocated. But I just cannot react well. For example, during the pandemic, I remember a lady came down. My dogs and I were walking, and I don't keep a lead on them. They're very passive and peaceful dogs, and plus there was nothing to do. And she started screaming at me to, catch the dog, hold the dog. The dogs were over next to her. So I said, "What is this? What's the problem?" And we took off, and then. I was in a more benign mood, so I told her, "Is it that you don't like certain types of dogs? Is it like this, his color, his look, etc.?" And I pushed it to racism and said, "Perhaps you don't like black people or midgets, or And I just couldn't stop. And she couldn't understand what I was saying. I just was ranting and raving like a mad person. But it really just makes my blood boil. I can't seem to stop. Sadly, my daughter's become like that also. So what can I say? But also I've realized that a passive approach doesn't seem to work either. You're building communities, you try to be nice, you move the food, you say, "I'm keeping it in this area." They still come, make a big deal out of it, and talk down to you and talk rudely, just looking for a fight after some time. You're wondering who's doing the. You're doing like God's work and trying to make the world better for animals in a sense. And there you're sitting down and, huffing and puffing because a poor starving dog with ribs showing is getting a little food for a few minutes. I mean, there's something wrong with their whole vision and you don't know what to do. And that's why I'm sorry to tell you, I'm not the right guy to answer these questions because I just get really aggressive. And if there are males involved, it doesn't take long for me to get, just behave like a savage.
Right. Anusha, Hemali, what are your thoughts on this?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think one way to deal with this social media for all of its ills, when people are threatened with like, I'm going to go, like, I'm going to record this, that you're behaving this way, things quickly dial down. I think that's one way to, in these situations, people don't want to, they're okay with behaving badly in private, but not for a wider, they don't want people to see them being nasty. So I think I find that to be pretty effective. Without actually having to, confront in that sense. So I think that actually does work.
Well, Anusha, the thing is that even now we have the Supreme Court ruling saying we can feed in public, all right? That you can't move animals from public areas, from their public areas in which they were. We all keep copies on our phone to show people. But the problem is, and I again don't want to get class conscious here, but the problem is with people like us only that I'm dealing with all the time. It's rarely anybody else.
But
and so in the club I go to, we have a whole group of women, sadly, who are always anti-cat and dog. Why are they on the Maidan? Why in the Maidan? I mean, like, what do you want? Should we just kill all of them? I mean, what? That's a conversation I have.
Yeah. I think there's also a lot of people think that all stray dogs, like strays are aggressive. They bite, they're violent. Because, when we say Supreme Court, there's a bunch of High Court rulings that say, kill them all, castrate them all of this stuff also about streeties, right? So all of that gets a lot of press too. So some of it, I think, is genuine sort of fear, misunderstanding. And if you're not, I think it's when you're not from we're not grown up around dogs, I think it's easy to sort of think all dogs are out to, jump on you, attack you. So there's a bit of that also.
So you're saying don't shoot the animal hater on sight. That's the wrong approach.
I would
gun
say,
license.
you know, like
Hello.
shoot them
Don't
with
give
a
evidence to
camera
that.
and live stream, and then the name and shame really works. For all of its ills, social media is
Yeah.
good for this. People want to
It,
appear lovely in public in front of a large crowd.
that's true. That's true.
Start recording.
The look may save us sometimes,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's not go on about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a naughty issue, to be honest. And I get what Cyrus is saying. I think we all, and especially dog parents, are infuriated by the very idea of, say,
Yeah.
the hint of cruelty.
Yeah.
I think there are two parts to this, though. One, of course, is deliberate cruelty, and the other is ignorance.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
you have to actually address both. If it is ignorance, then you have to actually, try and educate the people. I think it's getting kids on board is a great way to do it, because kids are great ambassadors in terms of, spreading any message. But I think also, I mean, let's be real here. There is always going to be that kind of, society uncle or society whatever group which is going to say, why are dogs here and why. So, I mean, how do you actually tackle that beyond, of course, Cyrus's approach of maybe knocking off a few, which is a great one. But I think the thing also is that one is you should know your rights. Animal feeders and people who take care of animals have rights. This whole bullshit about you can't take a dog in a lift or you can't feed an animal.
Really?
That's all bullshit. I mean, actually, the law says that you cannot discriminate to that extent. That's one. I think the other thing is, of course, that there has to be, till very recently, the penalty was some 50 rupees or 100 rupees for
$50.
What is
that
50
has to
rupees?
change. That has to change. And I think a lot of people are actually advocating for change. It's a good idea if you really want to make a difference to try and find out how you can support that. And I think another way of maybe helping is supporting your local animal welfare shelters, because these guys are actually doing a lot, right? From bringing in dogs which have been abandoned or are cases of cruelty, to working with the governments, working with the authorities. So I think some kind of positive steps in terms of both educating and in terms of what action you can do should be thought about. That said, I mean, I'm ashamed that I don't do as much as I would like to. But also there is this thing of, yes, we should be actually advocating and helping spread the program around neutering. Adopt, don't shop already has quite a lot of resonance. Let's see how we can build that up. So it's not a single approach solution. I think there are multiple things that need to happen. And like I said, if people are ignorant, then they should be told. But if there is deliberate cruelty, then I'm all for Cyrus's routes. But I'm also for saying that let's see what can be done in terms of people also knowing what their rights are in terms of protecting animals. Because very often I've seen they don't know. They get covered. They get covered by threats of. I've seen so many feeders and so many poor rescuers who are actually driven away. Now the fact is that by law you cannot be driven away if you're doing something.
Right.
I feel like there's not enough information about that, and maybe that is something that can also change at a very basic level.
Yeah, I mean, information about rights is one thing. Also, there's utter ignorance about what dogs are about among a lot of people. I mean, dogs are social creatures, which is why they hang around human communities so much. They are much more social than, let's say, cats. And therefore, then human communities start getting threatened, start feeling threatened that, oh, there are 6 of these dogs hanging about. What are they going to do? What if they attack me, etc., etc. No, that's not. You are dealing with a social creature. If you ever see an abandoned dog at a shelter, I mean, that sadness on their face is because they have now been isolated. Dogs don't like being isolated. Anyway, so this is a sad topic.
No, but it's true. Sorry, just to say, I've always wondered, why is it, and this is like, obviously, there's going to be no immediate solution to this. Why can you actually go and just buy a dog? It's a sentient being. I mean, why is it that being a dog guardian or a dog parent is just so easy?
I mean, compared to how difficult it is to adopt a human child. I mean,
and look, there are always
processes that you have to go through.
There's always this there's always this hierarchy of, this whole whataboutery, but no, humans have to be separate from dogs. But I think it's a fundamental question in terms of why is it so easy for anyone to be able to take in a dog and then do whatever they want to with it. Forget the fact that there's not going to be any other way of, you can't there can't be licenses, obviously, but there can be some basic education. So this whole thing of, there's this thing where in the UK, a lot of my friends tell me that around Christmas, dogs are being gifted left, right, and center. And then 3 months down the line, say around
Correct.
Easter, you'll see that the shelters are full. I mean, I find that so heartbreaking. Anyway, yeah, like Cyrus said, we could go on and on.
I mean, there's no end to the sad stories. I mean, anybody who lives in the Delhi NCR area knows that around May is when people take off for the hills, having turned their dogs out. The dogs
Yes,
are out on the streets. I mean, I have seen this happen in Gurgaon, and it's they're off for 3 months. They've turned the dog out on the street. They actually have the temerity to come back in August and say, "Acha, where is the dog?" Expecting the dog will be sitting right there waiting for them.
So that's
And yet the dog.
yeah. What sort of punishment or what sort of punitive measures do you have for people who abandon
People
dogs?
like this, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's like I said.
No, but you're right, Hemali. It's not about the punishments. We have to just educate people to some extent
Yeah.
about the connection.
Yeah.
They just don't have any connection with animals. Here's a paradox. My vegetarian friends growing up all were animal disconnected. And ironically, the non-vegetarians were all the animal lovers, hypocrites as we are. But so, this country is very odd that way. We have such hugely steeped in animal culture, in our religion and ethics and everything else. But yet people have no idea.
Yeah.
I think the first step is to just have dogs around with the kids who would be scared when they come home and all, and the parents or whatever. I'd always tell them, just relax. Just let them be around the dog. And we've had so many kids who, the fear just disappears because it's just normalcy after some time. Don't pat, don't touch, don't interact, don't do anything. Just have them around. Maybe it's a blueprint for human beings also, just mix up the melting pot a little bit and you have people around and then stop thinking about ye to ye hai, wo to wo hai. I mean, whatever. Anyway, I give up.
Stop looking at everything like a threat. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll bring this conversation to a close because I think we're running out of time. It's a Zoom call, so there's a time limit. No, but really, I mean, the books like these, I think, make a huge difference because they tell us the story. I mean, Cyrus, your book, Franco actually has a voice. The book is written in his voice, and it's not a pseudo dog voice. As in, I mean, there are two ways of writing in a dog voice. One is basically a human sort of just tweaking their voice a little bit and trying to make it a dog voice. And the other is writing as a dog might think. We don't know exactly how they think, but we have a sense. So, and this is the latter. I mean, this you can get into Franco's head. And there are a couple of pieces in Book of Dog which are also like that. I mean, one remarkable one was from Arunava Sinha's dog, Tingmo, who Arunava, of course, translated. And these are haikus. They're in Tingmo's voice, and they mostly have to do with how he, as in Tingmo, perceives Arunava. So hilarious. So I think the more we hear stories and the more we get perspectives from a dog's perspective on life, because the dog's perspective on life is very different and it's much simpler. It's much more in the moment. And I think it's much more full of joy than human perspectives often tend to be. Human perspectives, especially post-pandemic, have become very gloomy and, feeling of isolation everywhere, a feeling of doom everywhere, a feeling of despair everywhere. Also sometimes to do with what is happening in America and so on. Or elsewhere in other countries, closer home. But it's... it's delightful to hear dog stories, to read dog stories, to be able to take in that perspective. There's just so much joy there, and more books like this that happen. And I wanted to close with a question to all of you: is that one of the things that I don't see happening enough in India is enough fiction about dogs, and I suppose that's an international phenomenon as well. I mean, if you think of the biggest selling dog books like Marley and Me or Finding Gobi. They're typically non-fiction, and non-fiction stories which are astounding stories, which make for really good narrative. But really good creative fiction, where a dog is at the center of the story, or several dogs are at the center of the story, or dogs are, of an equal stature with a human family. That's not happening that much. How do you see that shaping up in the future? Will we see more of that?
Should I go first?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
So I think there's this, I've been thinking about that in the sense that I think there is a lot of fiction around children's books for dogs. And that
Mhm.
makes me wonder whether people think that this is just something that, children are,
That kids
children and
will
animals
enjoy.
are
Yeah.
great companions. That said, there are quite a few books now. I think so. Lessons in Chemistry has an adorable dog.
Yes.
630, I think his name is, if I remember. And there are a few, but you're right. They are few and far between in terms of fiction.
Mm.
Cinema, though, there's quite a lot of that.
Yes.
So
Right.
I think it's an interesting sort of dichotomy. But I think that'll change. I think as our approach to dogs in terms of the roles that they have in our lives changes, I think more stories around dogs, not just say non-fiction pieces, will change. By the way, just wanted to correct that the Book of Dog does have some fiction pieces as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Some fiction. Yes.
Not all non-fiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, whether for children or for adults. I think there should be, and again, wearing my different hat here, but as agents, we are actively looking for stories around animals, both in the adult and the children's space. We have 2 coming out this year, and yeah, I think the way we see it, that has to change. I think, given that dogs are such a central and a fundamental part of our lives, and not just our lives when we are growing up, but I mean, companions as we go through life, I think you will see more of that happening.
Yeah. Anusha, what do you think about this? You have written, I mean, the Little Book of Indian Dogs is fiction. It has a fictional frame, though it could as easily have been, the information that's in there could as easily have been part of a non-fiction book. Do you see a difference in putting it in a fictional framework? Would you like to do more of this?
I think it's more fun when you put it in a sort of fictional framework. Otherwise, you're just sort of saying, here, there's this, and this
Yeah.
is a bit of info about each dog. And I think it's more fun when you do it like this.
Yeah.
But when for adults, I think you need to find that person who loves dogs. Only when you've loved a dog, you've experienced that feeling, but you've also got to be able to write well, about it. So I think maybe there's just not that many. Maybe that's why you haven't seen those for adults so much. In the children's space, there's so many lovely. There's even this lovely wordless book I'm thinking of about a lovely streetie called Duga by Raji Vibe. There's a lot of lovely stuff for children, but for adults, I can't think of.
Yeah. Cyrus, are we going to see book 2, book 3, book 4? I mean, we won't tell Franco's human family. He has made that request at the end of the book that please don't let them know. I will continue this side life on my own. But are we going to see more adventures? I'm sure he's going to have more adventures, right?
The way I see it, we need fiction because otherwise the little guy can't win. That's the whole idea of fiction. We can at least win there. So. So for me, that's not just for me, but anybody writing, and because our hero is always going to be the dog, in real life as well as in whatever you write. So Franco hopefully will keep going like Rambo.
Like Rambo, yes.
Yeah, forever.
Thank you all. This was a lovely talking to you.
Can I just say one thing, Udayan?
Yes.
But all this pessimistic conversation from me up to a point, not so much Hemali and Anusha have been very balanced. I just want to quickly say that there's also a lot of humanity, which is good.
Yeah.
We see it every day. That Auntie Freni or Mr. Sharma who's feeding dogs, nobody knows who they are, but somewhere in Ghatkopar, in Mumbai, or somewhere in, somewhere in Jharkhand, in one small by lane in Jamshedpur. So there are lots of Indians who are really, really like angelic in many ways. So my thing is that we need to make sure that those guys, those unsung heroes, are protected, and more from there the tribe increases, because those are the real saints of India for me. And
Indeed, absolutely, and they need our full support. Absolutely, yes. The people are doing a lot of good work.
We get children to sort of, that love for dogs and children is important. I think if it,
100%.
at that age, then it lasts for life.
Absolutely.
Maybe instead of signing up our kids for 1 million, like tennis, ballet, this, that, let's spend time at, the local shelter,
Anusha, I was having a conversation that day, very quickly, running out of time. If you're going to die, what's the last visual you'll want? And that's a very, like, what would be the last meal? It's not as easy as you think. If you really think about it, it won't, come to you in a second. But I was thinking, and I love the ladies, and I love cricket, and I love the Beatles, and all this, and and then I think, but I would just like to see a puppy. That's it.
Hmm.
There's something about it.
A
Yes.
warm puppy, like a,
Oh,
yeah.
just it's just so beautiful. It's bright and bouncy and cheerful and happy and spirited, running around. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that dogs, they bring out something in you that I think you can, every sort of decade of my life, I relate to certain dogs, they
Yeah.
find that decade. I mean, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, the dogs have brought out the best in us, which is
Really.
that's
Yes.
something that I think all dog lovers are very grateful for that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this was really lovely. And signing off. Thank you all. And
What the hell is he?
on World Book Day. Look,
He's
please.
on the bed, huh? But she's not in the
Oh
house.
my God!
Peter's
So
on
show
the
it
bed.
again.
There
Am
you
I
go.
in
She
heaven
is.
already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, God, really. Yeah.
Afternoon
Heaven.
nap.
Dogs and beds.
Lovely.
That sounded wrong.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks. On that note, bye bye.
Anyway.
Okay.